This song is called I'll Walk This Land. The children of the Chinese immigrants are now very much part of life in Aotearoa, New Zealand. This song is for everybody who loves New Zealand. I'll walk this land of the long white cloud, Aotearoa, Aotearoa. And should you ask, what's it all about? I'll tell you truly with a victory shout. I'll sing a song for the land of mine.
Hi there and welcome to the show. My name is Brendan Fraser. I have the pleasure and the opportunity to introduce to you on this program a man by the name of Dr. James Ng, a historian who is going to be covering 4 topical subjects of interest within the New Zealand Chinese community. And I have the pleasure to have Dr. James Ng right beside me. Thank you so much. It's wonderful to have you here on the show.
Nearly all the early Chinese in New Zealand until recent times were Cantonese in origin. Moreover, they were sojourners, or in modern terms, transnationals, in that they aimed to achieve savings which they would take back to their home villages as capital. In other words, they were not settlers. And this state remained right into the 1920s and 30s in my father's generation, when the immigration laws which had accumulated from the 1880s had reached a stage when it was very difficult for a Chinese family to settle here anyway. However, after World War II, the New Zealand government wished the Chinese to settle, to put down roots and to immigrate and assimilate as a New Zealand people. Accordingly, the Cantonese eventually did so, and we are today fully accepted as New Zealanders. But in the past, the discrimination against the Cantonese was bad. It was hard. This was not because they were particularly bad. And indeed, and in fact, they were said to be regarded poorly because of their virtues. Nonetheless, they did not bond with the host society as sojourners. They did not learn the language, they did not, properly, and they did not share the activities and joys and sorrows of the community. And hence, in not bonding, they were vulnerable to criticism, whether real or otherwise. Today, we have forged the bonding that is necessary with the host society, and we do share the joys and sorrows of New Zealand as New Zealanders.
And now I have the pleasure and the opportunity to introduce you onto the program David Yan. David Yan is a pastor from the Auckland Emmanuel Church. Thank you so much for being part of this program. Thank you.
Thank you, Brendan. It's good to be here. This song is called Farewell Mountains of Guangdong. It's a tribute to the early Chinese migrants who came to New Zealand. They went to the gold mines, and then from there to the cities. They raised their families, and their children are now very much a part of the fabric of New Zealand society. Farewell Mountains of Guangdong. They called us aliens and Johnny Chinamen. It doesn't matter, we're part of that scene of the leaving of China through Sayaptoi Sound, crossing the ocean in search of Gamsan. Farewell, mountains of Guangdong, kiss my feet lest I stray, and return not to you, Pearl River Blue. Farewell, mountains Guangdong. We worked those mines, we panned for gold. We never got rich and we grew very old. We died in the mud, we died in those shacks, thinking of China, but we never got back. Farewell, mountains of Guangdong, kiss my feet lest I stray, and return not to you, Pearl River Blue. Farewell, mountains Guangdong. We went to the cities at the closing of the mines, looking for work of the menial kind. The years were hard, the years were cruel, but we strove for our children and sent them to school. Farewell, mountains of Guangdong, kiss my feet lest I stray, and return not to you, Pearl River Blue. Farewell, mountains Guangdong. Our children are numbered all over this land. They're doctors and lawyers and technical hands, working for the family as our fathers taught so, living harmoniously wherever they go. Farewell, mountains of Guangdong, lift your head and keep standing tall, and be proud of them all who left your great shore, your sons and daughters Guangdong. And be proud of them all who left your great shore, your sons and daughters Guangdong.
The ship SS Ventnor sank off Hokianga Harbour in 1902. Its cargo included 499 dead Chinese bodies, and they were to be taken back to China for burial in their ancestral villages. This would seem to many New Zealanders as a bizarre event, but in Chinese eyes, or rather in old Chinese eyes, it was a highly charitable action. Indeed, the Chinese would feel even today that it was a supreme example of the fidelity of the old Chinese immigrants to New Zealand, that they adhered to Chinese culture. The bodies were exhumed in a well-organized manner by the Chong Sing Tong, which was a burial society of the Pun Fa County grouping. And this grouping formed about 75% of the Chinese gold miners in New Zealand. So they had the numbers to do this action. In 1880, they sent their first cargo of 230 bodies back. In 1890, instead of bodies, they sent live elderly Chinese miners back. And then in 1900, they exhumed 20 years worth, if I may put it that way, 20 years accumulation of bodies. And this amounted to 499 bodies. Unfortunately, the ship struck a rock and sank off Hokianga. One of the nicest things about this terrible shock for the living miners was that an unknown number of bodies floated ashore, and not as bodies, of course, but as caskets and coffins. And they were buried with respect by the local iwi and by a European farmer.
This song is called the SS Ventnor. Many of the Chinese miners returned to China. Some stayed on and made Aotearoa in New Zealand their home. Many of them died in this country, and their remains were shipped back to China for customary ancestral rites. But the SS Ventnor had 499 bags of Chinese remains, and the Ventnor sank in the Hokianga harbour in 1902. The SS Ventnor. There's a ship that sails the Taranaki coast. She strikes some rocks and she fights to float. Like a brave lion with a wounded side, she steams ahead to the Hokianga tide. And the wind was light, and the day was bright, but the SS Ventnor is gone by night. Captain, oh Captain, please tell us true, what do you carry along with your crew? I've got 499 bags of Chinese bones, carrying them back to their ancestral home. And the wind was light, and the day was bright, but the SS Ventnor is gone by night. There's a woman, she stands by the South China Sea. She gazes across that eternity, but she watches in vain, for there's no ship to be, for the SS Ventnor's at the bottom of the sea. And the wind was light, and the day was bright, but the SS Ventnor is gone by night. You iwi of the north, you brave people, you, like Jabesh Gilead, a noble thing you do. You found those bones and you took them to hand, and buried them deep in your ancestral land. And the wind was light, and the day was bright, but the SS Ventnor is gone by night. In the year of 1902, when ships traversed the ocean blue, in Aotearoa and the far eastern land, you could hear the cries for the souls of men. And the wind was light, and the day was bright, but the SS Ventnor is gone by night.
Joe Kum Yung was 68 years of age in 1905. He had been 33 years in New Zealand and was being sent home by donations from his fellows because he had broken his leg and he was in poverty as well. He temporarily was staying at Haining Street in Wellington. The other person involved in this melodrama was Lionel Terry, who was 32 years of age in 1905. He was already moderately advanced in paranoid schizophrenia, and such people were prone to have a grand gesture according to their psychotic fixation of the moment. Terry planned to shoot a Chinese man to highlight his feelings about the yellow peril. And he went to Haining Street one night, saw old man Joe coming towards him, and without warning, and so the poor chap couldn't flee or fight, he shot him dead. There was much controversy about the matter because paranoid schizophrenia was not well known at that stage. In fact, it was hardly known as a medical entity. And besides that, Terry was a tall, handsome man who had been in the Horse Guards, held himself well, and spoke well about his fixation. Besides that, again, his presentation fitted in with the prejudices of the moment against the Chinese.
The song is called Old Man Joe. It records the shooting of Joe Kam Yong in 1905 in Haining Street, Wellington. He was shot dead after he went to the dairy and he came back holding a packet of peanuts. This is in remembrance of Old Man Joe. The song speaks for itself. Old Man Joe came into town looking for a place to stay. Haining Street looked good to Joe, place to spend his days. Wrong street, wrong place, wrong color, wrong race. Packet of peanuts in his hands, died with a bullet in his brain. Death knows no color, pain has no creed. When will we listen? When will we ever take heed? Old Man Joe from a foreign land worked in the mud and slush, panting for gold with hope in his heart, hoping for a golden start. Hard life, hard strife, you can't win when you've got no rights. 33 years on a West Coast mine, little to show for all that time. Death knows no color, pain has no creed. When will we listen? When will we ever take heed? I can see a day not far coming with a heavenly wind, when people are judged for what they are, not by the color of their skin. It's a new start, it's a new way. Let's work together for a new day. Love your neighbor as yourself, that's what it's all about. Death knows no color, pain has no creed. When will we listen? When will we ever take heed? And the mist sits still o'er that headstone gray. There's no color there, color's buried in the clay. Oh, death knows no color, pain has no creed. When will we listen? When will we ever take heed?
Between 1939 and 1941, New Zealand allowed 250 refugee wives to come to New Zealand with 244 young children. This number was the largest body of Chinese women to come, and they added to the 121 wives which had gathered from all the years of the Chinese in New Zealand and were recorded in the 1936 census. The immigration laws of New Zealand otherwise made it very difficult for Chinese wives to come, and indeed the refugee wives were bonded with a £200 bond to return to China after the war with their children. However, the New Zealand government post-war allowed them to stay, and they wished them to integrate, to put down roots, integrate and assimilate as a New Zealand people. That was the start of the real New Zealand Chinese settlement in this country, and as to be expected, it involved chiefly the children, who now formed a significant number in this country. But we still remember within the New Zealand Chinese community how these refugee mothers to us, how they coped despite difficult times. They were like any other refugee group from a different culture. Our mothers, the refugee wives, came from the countryside and could not speak English. They had to work with their husbands in lowly, labour-intensive occupations in order to financially secure their families. And they lived often in drab shops and market garden huts. Yet they were playing a crucial role in laying down the basis for us children to evolve as New Zealand citizens of the future.
This song is called Immigrant Woman. It recalls the coming to New Zealand in 1939 of women to join their husbands and their partners. Immigrant Woman. There's war in the air, our cupboards are bare. The time has come, the time that I fear. Daughter, sweet daughter, you must go alone to a foreign country far from your home, and be an immigrant woman, young, brave and free. Refugee woman, sailing the southern sea. Mother, dear mother, it grieves me so to leave you weeping before I go. Forever and a day your daughter I'll be, always remembering your love for me. I'll be your immigrant woman, young, brave and free. Refugee woman, sailing the southern sea. Whenever I'm crying, there's something inside to keep me from dying. Whenever there's pain, there's some kind of gain to watch my children growing. I've been through the fire, I've been through the storm, watched over my family from dawn to dawn. Don't call me tough or lady luck, just call me woman. 'Cause I'm an immigrant woman, young, brave and free. Refugee woman, sailing the southern sea. The lotus leaves die when the waters run dry, but I've got water hid from all eyes. My roots are planted and I'm here to stay. You're a refugee woman who came a long way. I am an immigrant woman, young, brave and free. Refugee woman, sailing the southern sea. Now my night has come, my hands are numb, my face is wrinkled from work in the sun. I lie in my bed and I think of the time when I left my mother and I heard these lines. You'll be an immigrant woman, young, brave and free. Refugee woman, sailing the southern sea. I'll walk this land from north to south, from the eastern Cape to the southern Alps. And should you ask what's it all about, I'll tell you truly with a victory shout. I'll learn to love and have no doubts, and lend a hand to the down and out, and move away from the love of wealth, but love my neighbor as myself. From Cape Reinga to the southern bluff, I'll walk this land that I love so much. And should you ask me what's it all about, I'll tell you truly with a victory shout. I'll raise my voice for the working folk who build this land with a working hand, for the down and out and the broken hearted, for the weak and the worn, for the tired and the torn.
You have just been watching the New Zealand Cantonese Chinese History program. This has also been proudly sponsored to you by Mandarin Times Pages.